Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with a Spain news update, and the debate whether we should or shouldn't need a COVID certificate to enter some public spaces is still making headlines, and Spain's Chief Health Officer Fernando Simón has weighed in on the debate, but more about that in just a moment. Firstly, a big thanks to all of the people that left comments on the last video. Lots of comments, lots of debate happening there as usual. Thanks to people that supported the channel through a donation. You can see your name here. Thanks to people that bought merchandise, and a big thanks to my patrons on Patreon for your continuing support. Now, let's get into the news, and as I said, the seemingly endless debate on COVID certificates still making headlines, and Spain's Chief Health Officer Fernando Simón has given his opinion on the matter. As we can see here, Simón advocates not making the vaccine compulsory and not imposing the COVID certificate. The director of the Centre for Coordination and Alerts and Emergencies, Fernando Simón, has considered that it is not necessary to impose compulsory vaccination for any group in Spain, as requested by several communities, nor does he consider it appropriate to establish the requirement to present a COVID certificate in order to allow mobility or access to certain places. In Spain, he added, the public has understood that the vaccine, in addition to protecting the individual, helps society to get out of this huge problem. So there we go. According to Mr. Simón, fairly clear, he doesn't think that we need to impose compulsory vaccination on any age group in the country, and he also thinks that COVID vaccination certificates shouldn't be made compulsory in order to enter certain spaces, for example nightlife venues or sports stadiums. So Spain seems to be bucking the European trend at the moment, because in other European countries, for example France and Germany, COVID certificates are becoming commonplace. Now, political corruption is back in the headlines, but fortunately it's not a new case. It dates back a few years, and it relates to the former Madrid Premier, Ignacio González, and the fact that he is on trial for allegedly awarding irregular contracts in the construction of the Canal Isabel II golf course. Audiencia Nacional magistrate Manuel García Castellón has issued an order to open an oral trial for the former president of Madrid, Ignacio González, and 4 other people for alleged irregularities into the awarding of 2 contracts related to the golf course of the Canal de Isabel II to the company Tecnoconcret, owned by his brother and a brother-in-law. The judge in the Lethal case opened a trial for the contracts related to the golf course for the crimes of bribery, influence peddling in tenders with bribery, administrative misconduct, and 2 crimes of fraud against public administrations. So there we go, irregular contracts in the construction of a golf course in Madrid, the former Madrid president, Mr. González, involved, his brother and his brother-in-law. Mr. González, if I'm not mistaken, replaced another controversial Madrid premier, Esperanza Aguirre, and he was replaced by somebody who was also brought down in a scandal, Cristina Cifuentes. All of these people belong to the same political party, the PP, the Partido Popular, which is still in power in Madrid, and the alleged irregularities that we just saw, quite serious in my opinion, but obviously not serious enough for Madrid voters to change the political party that governs them. Now, Murcia's Menor region is making headlines today. As we know, this is an area of Spain that has a few environmental issues. As we can see here from this headline, Murcia's Menor, a handful of signatures away from having its own rights. The Menor is already halfway through its struggle to become a legal person in order to defend its ecosystem. Massive urbanization and incompatible agriculture have damaged a landscape that is now trying to protect itself. Faced with the situation of this saltwater lagoon, a group of professionals from the University of Murcia, together with lawyer Teresa Vicente Jimenez, decided to launch, in the midst of the pandemic, an initiative to grant it its own rights. The situation in the Mar Menor was a disaster foretold, Teresa told rtve.es, recalling all the problems the lagoon has suffered since the 1980s. So there we go, an interesting story there about the Mar Menor trying to protect itself against massive urbanization and incompatible agriculture techniques. And it's good to see that action groups like the one mentioned in the article are doing something to try to fix the problem and not waiting for politicians to fix it. Now let's have a look at a summary of the health situation in Spain. We can see that the accumulated incidence rate for the last 14 days is now down to 591. There are still 10,015 COVID patients hospitalized around the country, and there are still 1,928 COVID patients in ICU. If we have a look at the autonomous community in Spain least affected by COVID at the moment, Asturias, we can see that the accumulated incidence rate in that autonomous community is 393. If we have a look at Spain's vaccination campaign, we can see that just under 60% of the population are completely vaccinated, and just under 70% have received at least 1 dose. Now, a quick update on a story we saw the other day about a Basque street gang called the Koala Brothers, and it is that the Home Ministry is updating an anti-gang plan to include groups like the Koala Brothers. The decision to strengthen the fight against hate crimes announced last week by the Home Minister Fernando includes the forthcoming update of the Plan for Action and Police Coordination against Organised and Violent Youth Groups, which has been in force since 2014. The aim is to incorporate what experts call emerging youth phenomena linked to illicit behaviour that generates great social alarm into the radar of the security forces, according to sources familiar with the project. So the Home Ministry deciding that it's a good time to update their anti-gang plan and crack down on hate crimes, which have become a bit of a problem in recent months. There's recently been hate crimes against immigrants in Murcia. There was a very serious crime last month in Galicia, where a young man was beaten to death in an alleged homophobic hate crime. And of course the attack by the Koala Brothers on a young man of Romanian origin who is currently in a coma in a Basque hospital. Now, on the subject of homophobia in Spain, an ad for a chocolate bar has had to be removed because a lot of people considered it to be homophobic. As we can see here, Snickers Spain pulls advert after accusations of homophobia. Snickers in Spain has pulled a controversial advertisement and apologised for any misunderstanding that may have been caused after the 20-second film was widely condemned for being homophobic. The advert shows the Spanish influencer Ales Gibaja ordering a sexy orange juice while a friend trades puzzled looks with the waiter. The waiter responds by handing Gibaja a Snickers ice cream bar, and after a bite, Gibaja appears to transform into a bearded man with a deep voice. "Better?" the friend asks. "Better," replies the man, as the tagline reads, "You're not yourself when you're hungry." Now let's take a look at the ad and see why it was so controversial.
Entonces sería un agua con gas del tiempo, con una rodaja de limón y un sexy zumo de naranja.
Con vitaminas A, B y C. Abracitos, besitos, ¡muac! Y caricias around the world.
Anda, toma un helado Snickers. Mejor. Mejor.
So there we go, a bit of a strange ad in 2021 in my opinion. I'm not going to go too much into the debate on homophobia, but given the society that we live in now, I'm very surprised that an international company would allow an ad like that to go to air. Now, there's been a lot of talk in recent times about the lack of international tourism in Spain this year and the effect that it's having on the tourist sector, but never fear, because Spanish families are here and they're keeping the sector afloat. As we can see here, Spanish families rescue Benidorm from the downturn due to the lack of Brits. Tourism is starting to pick up in the Valencian community, and in particular Benidorm. Neither the increase in the accumulated incidents nor the restrictions imposed on nighttime mobility have prevented the hotel occupancy record from being set at the end of July. Occupancy has taken off and is close to 70%, with a classic holidaymaker profile. Hotels with children's facilities are gaining market share, and spending per person has increased. So it seems that Spain's main tourism resorts have a bit of a retro look about them this year. A lot of national tourists, not too many international tourists, and you'd probably have to go back to the 1970s to see something similar. Now let's have a look at some of the comments from previous videos. One here from Alan: Messi has been on 123 million euros a year. He agreed to half that, but was still too much for Barca. He doesn't need the money, so he should consider staying and playing for nothing. Alan, thanks for the comment, and thanks for pointing out that huge contract that Messi was on. 123 million euros at Barcelona. One of the reasons why he has left the club said that they couldn't afford to pay that amount of money. Obviously, when you have a salary like that over a number of years, you don't really need the money. He's probably got enough money stashed away for 5 or 6 generations of the Messi family. And if there's one thing we've learned over the years, football players don't play for free. Should he have stayed, taken a pay cut, been loyal to a club that has paid his salary for the last 17 or 18 years? Perhaps, but it's clear that the Messi family doesn't think that way, so it's on to another massive contract at another club. One here from Alex: the usual perverted social priorities reflected in the Spanish press, consternation about the affairs of a multi-millionaire footballer, and concern and outrage on behalf of the unemployed and low paid. Oh, the irony! Sadly no different in the UK. Yeah, Alex, thanks for the comment, and it was a bit of a contradiction. You could see the front pages of the paper the other day. A lot of people upset that Messi was leaving the country, unhappy that he wasn't going to continue in La Liga, making an obscene amount of money, some 123 million euros as we saw before. And then just below that, a story about how some 4 or 5 million people in Spain can't afford to go on holidays. But it is a sign of the times, unfortunately, enormous disparities when it comes to wealth around the country. Don't get me wrong, if you are very good at what you do, like Messi is, then you should be rewarded for it, but you don't need to make over 100 million to live well in Spain, especially when there's so many people doing it tough. One here from Richard: you have to be part of the media supporting Lidl employing people at low wages. If you had highlighted the poor salary, we would forgive you. Yeah, Richard, thanks for the comment, and I don't think that I was supporting the company Lidl employing people in Spain on low wages. In fact, I think I said the opposite, and I mentioned that I can't understand how people can live on 1,300 euros in the country, especially in big cities. So I suggest you watch the videos more closely, pay attention to what I say, and you'll be able to save yourself the 5 minutes that it took to write that comment. One here from Ms. SDN: in the UK, everything is becoming increasingly cashless. Contactless with your card, phone, or your watch is very common. I feel for the elderly people who aren't able to use the systems, as they don't have smartphones or Apple Watches and don't feel safe using contactless. Yeah, Ms. SDN, thanks for the comment, and it's a fairly similar situation in Spain. Everything is moving towards a cashless society. More and more people have devices on which you can pay for things, for example, Apple Pay, Google Pay, Samsung Pay, and various other types of payment methods. In fact, payment companies are continually coming up with new methods to make it easier for people to pay. And you're right, it is difficult for some members of society to adapt to all of these new changes, especially the older generations. There are a lot of complaints in Spain from people saying that they are being excluded from the banking system as branches around the country close down, difficult to find ATMs in some parts of the country, not easy to get cash, and banks are pushing people, whether they like it or not, to move towards financial technology. So a lot of changes happening in that sector, changes that are happening very quickly, and a lot of people unfortunately aren't able to keep up with the change. One here from Lee: Sweden has gone a bit bananas with electricity as the Green Party shut down 2 nuclear reactors. Now we have to import coal power from Poland and prices soared. I think we need some EU coordination and common sense here. Renewables are not so reliable, unfortunately. The French are onto something, building more nuclear plants, while Merkel is shutting plants down. It's a European mess. Not sure what the Spanish stance is, haven't heard of any strategy, just talk about being green. Yeah, Lee, thanks for the comment, and you're right, you don't hear a lot of talk about nuclear energy in Spain. There are nuclear plants. I think there's 7 nuclear plants around the country, 5 are active, and I think around 20% of Spain's energy is derived from nuclear. But it is a fairly controversial subject, like it is in many countries around the world. In Spain, I think there is a fairly strong anti-nuke lobby, and various socialist governments have been trying to phase out nuclear energy since the 1980s, I believe. The current socialist government in Spain has said that one of their priorities is to phase out nuclear energy completely. Not sure exactly when they want to have that done by, and the plan is to have all of Spain's energy coming from renewable sources by 2050. So it's green, green, and more green as far as Spain's energy plans for the future are concerned. And finally, one here from Kevin: Hi Stuart, please let us know about the explosion of ticks on the beaches around Murcia. Yeah, Kevin, thanks for the comment. I have read in various papers in recent days that Spain has a bit of a tick problem at the moment, garrapatas as they are known in Spanish, not only on the beaches in Murcia, but in many other parts of the country also. And apparently a few people have been hospitalized recently because they were bitten by a tick. And what are the reasons for this tick explosion around the country? Well, apparently it's got something to do with warmer winters and longer, hotter summers. And the amount of ticks in Spain seems to be increasing on a yearly basis. So if you're out and about in Spain, especially in some of the more warmer areas, taking a walk in the countryside, on the beach, be careful with ticks. On that note, I'll start to wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the situation out as you normally do. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.